Something hurts you and you make a quiet decision. Next time, I will care less. You answer fewer messages. You stop asking for help. You become harder to read. You call it peace because no one can reach the place that was wounded. But there is a difference between becoming steady and becoming numb. One gives you command of yourself, the other gives your pain command of the door. Stoicism is often presented as the art of feeling nothing. It is not. The Stoics trained themselves to examine impressions, choose their conduct, endure discomfort, and remain useful to other people. Their strength was not emotional frost. It was the ability to keep judgment and character when life became difficult. In this video, you will learn 7 Stoic rules for becoming unshakable without becoming cold, not untouchable, not indifferent. Strong enough to feel what is real, refuse what is destructive, and still decide who you will be. Rule 1. Pause before you agree with your first impression. The first thing that enters your mind after a painful event is not always the truth. It is an impression. A friend does not answer, and the impression says, "You no longer matter." A plan fails, and the impression says, "You always ruin everything." Someone criticizes you, and the impression says, "You must defend yourself immediately, or everyone will believe them." The event may be real. The meaning your mind attaches to it arrives so quickly that it feels equally real. That is where self-command begins. Epictetus repeatedly taught his students to examine impressions before giving assent to them. In practical terms, that means you do not have to treat every thought as an instruction. You can receive a thought without signing your name beneath it. The simplest practice is a 3-part pause. First, state the fact without interpretation. The message has not been answered. The meeting did not go as planned. A person raised his voice. The opportunity ended. Second, name the story your mind is adding. I am being abandoned. I am a failure. I am in danger of looking weak. Nothing will improve. Third, choose the next action that still belongs to you. Wait before sending another message. Review what actually failed. Leave the room. Ask one clear question. Return to the work in front of you. This pause does not deny emotion. It protects emotion from becoming a verdict. Seneca argued that anger grows when the mind accepts an initial impression and continues it. The first movement may arrive without permission. What follows is where responsibility begins. Imagine someone speaks to you with contempt. Your chest tightens before you can reason about it. That physical reaction is not a moral failure. But the insulting message you are about to send, the accusation you are about to make, or the decision to punish every future person for this moment is not automatic. There is a space between being struck and becoming striking. At first, that space may last only one breath. Use it. You do not need perfect calm. You need enough distance to ask, what do I actually know, and what action will I respect tomorrow? An unshakable person is not someone who never receives a disturbing impression. It is someone who does not hand every impression the keys. Rule 2. Separate pain from the story pain wants to tell. Pain is specific. Stories are expansive. Pain says, "This person disappointed me." The story says, "No one can be trusted." Pain says, "I failed at something important." The story says, "I am the kind of person who will always fail." Pain says, "This season is lonely." The story says, "I will be alone forever." When you fuse pain with a permanent story, a difficult event becomes an identity. Then you do not merely carry what happened, you start organizing your future around it. This is one reason people become cold. Coldness feels like a form of prediction. If you expect nothing, reveal nothing, and need nothing, perhaps nothing can surprise you. But a life built to prevent every possible wound must also prevent closeness, effort, hope, and honest risk. The armor works by reducing the life inside it. The Stoic alternative is not forced optimism. You do not have to say the betrayal was good, the loss was meant to happen, or the failure does not matter. You can say something more accurate. This hurts, and I do not yet know everything it means. That sentence is stronger than a dramatic conclusion because it leaves room for reality. When your mind uses words such as always, never, everyone, or nothing, slow down. Ask whether the event supports a precise judgment or whether pain is trying to become a prophecy. Suppose you trusted the wrong person. The lesson may be that you ignored a pattern, moved too quickly, or failed to enforce a boundary. Those are useful conclusions because they can guide future conduct. The conclusion that trust itself is foolish gives you no wisdom. It only makes absence feel safer than discernment. Write the experience in one honest sentence, then write the lesson in one honest sentence. The experience: I gave access to someone who repeatedly used my openness against me. The lesson: I can remain sincere while giving trust gradually and responding to patterns sooner. Notice what was preserved. The lesson strengthens judgment without destroying warmth. You are allowed to grieve. You are allowed to be disappointed. You are allowed to need time. But do not let a temporary wound write a permanent constitution for your character. Rule 3. Define control by the next action, not the final outcome. Many people feel powerless because they define control too broadly. They want control to mean that the relationship will be repaired, the plan will succeed, the other person will understand. The fear will disappear, and the future will cooperate. That is not control. That is a demand for certainty. The Stoic distinction between what depends on us and what does not is not a promise that your actions will produce the outcome you want. It is a discipline of placing your effort where your agency is real. Your next action is often small enough to be overlooked. You cannot force someone to respect your boundary. You can state it once and decide what you will do if it is crossed. You cannot guarantee that your work will be rewarded. You can complete today's difficult hour with care. You cannot erase grief on command. You can eat, walk, rest, and speak to someone trustworthy instead of abandoning your body. You cannot make uncertainty disappear. You can prepare for the part that is foreseeable and stop rehearsing disasters that have not occurred. When life feels chaotic, ask a narrower question: what is the next action that remains mine? Not the action that proves you are powerful, not the action that makes everyone agree. The action that is honest, useful, and proportionate. There is a quiet dignity in doing one controllable thing well. Consider a man who has just lost an opportunity he spent months pursuing. He cannot reopen the decision. He cannot demand a different past. For several hours, he may feel angry and humiliated. His next action is not to manufacture inspiration. It might be to close the computer, take a walk, and refuse to send a bitter response. The next morning, his action might be to ask for feedback. Later, it may be to improve one weakness. None of these actions guarantees success. Together, they restore authorship. Resilience is rarely one heroic choice. It is a sequence of modest choices made before competence returns. This is why you do not need to feel unshakable before you act with steadiness. Action can teach the nervous mind what slogans cannot. Discomfort is present, and I can still choose. Rule 4. Never borrow someone else's character. This may be the most important rule in the entire video. When someone is dishonest, cruel, dismissive, or manipulative, there is a temptation to let their behavior set the standard for yours. They ignored me, so I will make them feel invisible. They embarrassed me, so I will expose them. They used my kindness, so kindness must be weakness. They became cold, so I will become colder. Now, the person who harmed you is no longer controlling only the moment. They are editing your character. Marcus Aurelius often returned to the idea that another person's wrongdoing does not require you to become like them. That is not passive advice. It is a refusal to surrender moral independence. Your character is not a mirror that must copy whatever stands in front of it. This does not mean remaining available to people who repeatedly harm you. Kindness is not unlimited access. Compassion is not permission. Understanding why someone behaves badly does not require you to volunteer for the next demonstration. You can leave without revenge. You can say no without contempt. You can reduce contact without creating a campaign against the person. You can protect your peace without needing them to suffer first. That combination is difficult because anger offers a simpler identity. It says, "Become hard and you will never be weak again." But hardness is not the same as strength. A hard object can be brittle. Real strength includes the ability to apply the right amount of force in the right direction for the right reason. Picture two responses to betrayal. The first person tells himself that caring was the mistake. He becomes suspicious of everyone, withholds honest communication, and punishes new people for old evidence. The second person studies the pattern. He admits where he ignored reality. He sets a firmer boundary. He becomes slower with trust, but not incapable of it. He leaves the experience more discerning, not less human. Both changed. Only one surrendered his character to the injury. When you are deciding how to respond, ask, "If I repeat this behavior for 1 year, who will I become?" That question exposes revenge disguised as self-respect. It also exposes passivity disguised as kindness. The goal is not to be endlessly pleasant. The goal is to remain just, courageous, temperate, and clear. Warmth with no boundary becomes self-neglected. Boundaries with no humanity become isolation. Stoic self-command holds both. Rule 5. Train your ability to tolerate chosen discomfort. People often try to become resilient during the crisis. That is like learning to swim after falling into deep water. The Stoics practiced forms of voluntary discomfort, not because suffering was automatically virtuous, but because dependence on constant comfort makes judgment easier to control. Modern practice does not need to become a performance. You do not need dramatic cold plunges, public deprivation, or rituals designed to make you feel superior. Choose ordinary discomfort that strengthens your ability to act without immediate reward. Finish the task before checking your phone. Take the honest conversation you have delayed. Walk when the weather is inconvenient but safe. Eat a simple meal without turning it into a complaint. Keep a promise when enthusiasm has disappeared. Sit for 10 minutes without filling the silence. The purpose is not punishment. It is evidence. Each completed difficulty tells you, I can experience an urge without obeying it. I can feel resistance without making resistance the decision. I can be uncomfortable without becoming desperate. This training matters because coldness is often an attempt to avoid vulnerability, and vulnerability is a form of discomfort. If you cannot tolerate the uncertainty of being honest, you will hide. If you cannot tolerate another person's disappointment, you will If you cannot tolerate loneliness for one evening, you may return to relationships that cost your self-respect. If you cannot tolerate the possibility of failure, you will call inaction wisdom. Chosen discomfort expands the range in which you can still behave according to principle. Start small enough that consistency matters more than drama. For 7 days, choose one daily act that your comfort-seeking mind would postpone. Define it clearly. Complete it before negotiation begins. Record only whether you did it. Do not use the practice to insult yourself. The language is not, prove you are not weak. The language is, practice keeping one decision. Self-trust grows when your actions become credible to you. Then, when hardship arrives without permission, you are not meeting discomfort as a complete stranger. Rule 6. Protect connection without making it dependence. After being hurt, isolation can look like perfect control. No one can disappoint you if no one matters. No one can misunderstand you if no one knows you. No one can reject what you never reveal. But the Stoic tradition was not built around escaping humanity. It treated human beings as social creatures with roles and duties toward one another. Self-reliance means you do not make another person's approval the foundation of your judgment. It does not mean refusing every form of support, friendship, affection, or cooperation. There is a difference between standing on your own feet and pretending you have no need for a world beyond yourself. Healthy connection does not require complete access. You can choose people carefully. You can share gradually. You can notice whether care is reciprocal. You can say what is true without explaining every part of yourself. Ask 3 questions about the relationships around you. Can I be honest here without being punished for every difference? Does this person respect a clear no, even when disappointed? After difficulty, do we repair through truth and changed behavior, or only through temporary emotion? These questions are more useful than asking whether someone makes you feel good all the time. Every real relationship contains inconvenience and misunderstanding. The issue is whether difficulty produces greater clarity or repeated erosion. Be careful not to confuse emotional intensity with connection. A relationship that keeps you anxious, apologizing, and proving yourself may feel important because it occupies your mind. Occupation is not intimacy. At the same time, do not confuse calm distance with healing. Sometimes distance is necessary. Sometimes it becomes a room where fear can avoid being tested. The practice is selective openness. Offer honesty to people who handle honesty responsibly. Ask for help from people who do not turn help into ownership. Give care without using care to purchase approval. Receive care without treating need as humiliation. You become harder to manipulate when you can be alone. You remain fully human when you can also choose connection. The aim is not invulnerability. It is freedom from the belief that either isolation or dependence is your only option. Rule 7. Turn adversity into material for character. This rule is often reduced to a slogan. The obstacle is the way. But slogans become dangerous when they romanticize pain. Not every loss was necessary. Not every injustice contains a secret gift. Some events are simply painful, unfair, or irreversible. Stoic practice begins after that recognition with a different question. Given that this has happened, what quality does this moment require from me now? Perhaps it requires courage to begin again. Perhaps it requires temperance to avoid the message you want to send at midnight. Perhaps it requires justice to admit that your pain does not justify hurting someone else. Perhaps it requires wisdom to stop demanding certainty before taking the next step. Adversity becomes material when you use it to practice a quality that remains valuable beyond the event. Think of a stone in the hands of 2 builders. One sees only weight. The other sees where it can strengthen the structure. The stone did not become light. Its place became purposeful. You can use the same approach at the end of a difficult day. Ask, what tested me today? What was my first impression? What action did I choose? Where did I preserve my character? What will I practice differently tomorrow? This review is not a courtroom. It is training. If you reacted badly, name it without turning one mistake into an identity. Repair what can be repaired. Identify the earlier moment when a wiser choice was still available. Practice seeing that moment sooner next time. If you acted well, do not turn it into superiority. Record the method. Perhaps you waited 10 minutes, asked for clarification, left the room. Or remembered that another person's anger was not an emergency. Methods can be repeated. Pride is less useful. Over time, your confidence changes its source. You stop asking, "Can I prevent life from hurting me?" You begin asking, "Can I meet what happens without abandoning my judgment, duties, and humanity?" That is a form of strength. No event can guarantee, but every event can train. Let us bring the 7 rules together. Pause before you agree with the first impression. Separate the pain from the permanent story. Define control by the next action, not the final outcome. Never borrow someone else's character. Train with chosen, ordinary discomfort. Protect connection without making it dependence. Turn adversity into material for character. You can practice all 7 in one difficult moment. Someone disappoints you? You notice the first judgment instead of immediately obeying it. You state the fact and separate it from the prophecy. You choose the next honest action. You refuse to become cruel because someone else was careless. You tolerate the discomfort of a boundary. You stay open to trustworthy connection. Later, you review what the moment taught you. Nothing in that process asks you to become cold. You may still feel sadness. You may still miss someone you should not return to. You may still feel fear before a difficult decision. The presence of emotion does not mean the absence of strength. The deeper measure is whether emotion becomes information you can examine or authority you must obey. Being unshakable does not mean that nothing moves you. It means that what moves you does not automatically own your direction. You can care deeply and still say no. You can feel grief and still continue your duties. You can forgive without restoring access. You can be cautious without becoming suspicious of everyone. You can be strong without turning your heart into evidence of an old injury. The world does not need a colder version of you. It needs a governed version of you. If other people's reactions have made you harden, over-explain, or doubt your decisions, the weight of their reaction offers a practical, stoic way to keep your boundaries without losing your humanity. You will find the link in the description.